All right, it's a minute past 8 this Friday morning. I'm delighted to say we have Alan Quinlan in studio and Ronan O'Gara on the line. Gentlemen, you're both very welcome. Ronan, I might start with you. Was it an open secret in rugby circles that Healy was going to go to Scotland? Were you aware of this from a way back, or was it kind of relatively new news?
No, very, very new. First I ever heard of it. Obviously, I'm removed from Munster now. No, I read it on Twitter. Was it 2 days ago? I missed the initial. I heard rumours of going to Glasgow. Wasn't there approach during the summer?
Yeah.
But obviously that's par for the course in rugby nowadays. There'll always be potential signings, but it's gone to the other extreme now, where it's a done deal, and obviously declaring for Scotland, which is it's big news.
What did you make of it?
I can understand where Ben is coming from. I think it's very, very competitive in Munster and Ireland, but he is still very young with low mileage, with a huge capacity, I think, to get better. But obviously, I think he's being enticed by Gregor Townsend, and the fact that this is his World Cup probably in 10 months' time. There's it's probably been sold to him, and the fact that a nice foil with Finn Russell, and I suppose the stability, solidity, game management of Ben Healy with the maverick approach of Finn Russell seems to go well for a 23-man squad. Obviously Hastings is injured for the Six Nations, which could open the door, but it's a big decision for a young player. I remember going back donkey's years. I met Eddie O'Sullivan when he was coaching the US Eagles, and I was in that position where I was kind of trying to convince myself I could play for Cork and represent America at national level. But thankfully I didn't make that decision, because once you make that, you can't turn it back, and it's a huge moment for the player and for Ben, and the emotions involved, and with his family involved in that. It's a big call, and as we know, the show goes on, but when you put it in his situation, that's a massive, I suppose, decision for any young player to make.
Yeah, it seems like it's a permanent decision being made about maybe a short-term problem at not getting into the team at the moment, Quinny.
Yeah, it was, to be honest, I think his head was turned. He's obviously probably getting a good contract, salary as well, but I wouldn't say it's kind of thrown in the towel, but
it is a bit, isn't it?
That kind of expression is probably a wrong expression, but it feels a little bit like you'd love to kind of him to have an attitude of saying, well, okay, I have a little bit of a dip in form here, and behind a little bit here. And Roger will know himself from playing with Munster, particularly in the back row. When I played there, we all had moments or periods where we weren't in the team. David Wallace came back from 2001 Lions tour, and he was playing with Garryowen a few months later. Leamy came on the scene. Jim Williams was there. I was there. Axel. A lot more depth in the back row. And Wally was playing with Garryowen for a few months. So you have dips like that, particularly for a young player who propelled himself on the scene in the last kind of year and a half of his ability to kick long range penalties, a lot of composure, control. I'm surprised, I'm surprised that because other opportunities will come as regards bigger contracts, like to go to France in another. It's a really big decision, but he obviously feels that the door is closing a little bit more and closed.
He's not thrown in the towel though if he feels more Scottish.
How does he feel Scottish? He's from Tipperary, Shane.
I know,
you know what I mean.
But
he's one of his grandparents are Scottish. They've been putting the squeeze on him. It was going on last year as well with Glasgow, and fair play. Scotland. Gregor Townsend has obviously convinced him that he can develop his game, do something with him, and I'm not saying it's the wrong call. I admire him for being brave about it. For me personally, I would have loved to the kind of. You see, it's a very short career as well. So he stays on for another 2 years, a year or two, and suddenly he's 25, 26. The opportunities don't come around, and it's the same in coaching as well. So sometimes you've got to just go with your gut. He's done that. It's a big call, and it's a pity for Irish rugby that it's happened. In an ideal world, from an Irish rugby point of view, go to Connacht, go to Ulster, start there, play against Carbery, play against Jack Crowley. Johnny Sexton is leaving next year, so the gap we're always talking about, it will be a more even playing field next year. So they've turned his head and he's made the decision, and fair play to him for being brave for that. I would have liked to have seen him stay and fight it out a little bit, but I do understand in a sense that there's a frustration probably there, the way things have turned out in the last couple of months for him.
Ronan, you guys were linked with one of the young Munster halves, trying to take them on loan about a year ago. Is that right? Was it Crowley, or
no,
was
it not take him on loan, sign him? Jack
right.
Crowley.
It was Crowley. Okay, so you obviously scouted the Munster halves and were looking to see.
Yeah, of course I did, exactly. I just there was a Cork-Con connection there, and it was more, I would rate Don Lenihan's opinion on rugby because I worked with him he was my coach, my manager, kind of a mentor, and it's weird with a second row. I felt a very good connection with him, and obviously he looked after me and bringing me up in Con in that regard, and kind of, I suppose, grew me well. So he recommended this guy from Bandon Grammar, and I had kind of watched him and watched footage of him. I thought he was good, but from my point of view, he was more as a number two. Who can I get someone that I can maybe get 8 or 10 games a year out of? And the situation in Munster isn't clear-cut about. There's 3 very, very good number 10s, but 3 very good number 10s doesn't work, and it's not really of any interest what our opinion on it is, Ger. It's got to do with what Ben Healy. Boys are talking about throwing in the towel. I don't think Ben Healy would be throwing in the towel. I think he's presented with a set of circumstances or consequences in front of him, and he has decided to do this. So I think it is very interesting when you look at it like that, because he may feel that no matter how he plays, whether it's right or wrong, that the door is closed in front of him, and his progress in Munster and Ireland is blocked, and he wants out.
Does that, Ronan, highlight one of the major difficulties in managing an Irish province? You have to deal with these sorts of things and dilemmas of keeping players involved within the country, and it certainly is something that's unique.
It's in every club, in every sport, and all around the world. That's the reality of what happened. The club sees it one way, a player sees it very differently at times, and I see that on a daily basis, and that's something what you have to manage. In this situation, Munster will feel pretty loaded in the fact that they have Carbery and Crowley, and Ben Healy has decided to take a different route. It's a professional sport. It's quite ruthless at the top, and that's the decision. Sometimes these things, there doesn't need to be any blood whatsoever. It's just the way, I suppose, the market works.
Alan, one of the things that we've given Andy Farrell a lot of credit for is spotting talent, taking players who might not be even first choice of the province and making them first choice for Ireland. You think of Gibson Park, and there's a few examples in the second row and even in the back row where they pick players and they put them in. Healy didn't get that opportunity really to shine with Ireland at the senior level, which would suggest they don't think that this is a significant loss in terms of the talent pool, or that they feel like they're loaded as well at Ireland level. Yeah, well, it was obviously with emerging Ireland, he wasn't picked to go on that tour to South Africa, and I feel if this was Leinster, and it's not a Munster-Leinster thing, but even during our successful time and when we had a really strong squad in Munster and we were winning European Cups, even guys on the fringes of that squad or younger players coming through, they didn't want to leave because they wanted to be part of. This was a winning team, and there was a kind of there was a good badge of honour in a sense being part of a very, very strong squad, in a sense that
your marketability even was still quite high. Even if you weren't getting a lot of games, you were still part of a Munster squad. That's happening with Leinster. There's certain players in Leinster who are second, third choice, and they're still part of a really strong squad of players that still makes them quite marketable to teams in France and UK and wherever. They don't play the same number of games. So Munster's a little bit different at the moment, that their path is obviously different. So I think he had a surge up, didn't he, in the last year and a half, 2 years. But the evolution of his game and taking it to the next level has been restricted by playing 2 games, not playing for another 4 or 5, then the nature of it here. So, he's at a point where someone like ROG or Gregor Townsend, or who's top class international experience, they get their hands on this guy, and that, I think, probably is what's turning this here. And it's a different pathway. It's a very brave one. And it's a shame that he's gone, but he hasn't been called into an Irish squad or trained with them. So that would indicate that.
If you were happy enough for this to have happened.
Well, I wouldn't say they're happy. I'd say they would have loved him to go to Connacht or Ulster.
They didn't do enough to stop it. They didn't say, okay, look, you're definitely a major part of our plans in the future.
There's a Munster tried to keep him, but they wouldn't have been able to offer him 200 grand a year. You know what I mean? It's just
if you could, if they wanted to.
It's you're creating a precedent there.
You are, but you're deciding that
you're offering guys who are not starting on their provincial teams that kind of money. It's just not sustainable, or it's not right. And we've so many positives about the model here and the way it goes, and envy from a lot of clubs.
Okay, I just want to bring Ronan in on that. So Munster feel pretty loaded. They've got 2 out halves now, right? But say Crowley develops into a world class 12, which is potential, but it's unlikely. But there are games at the moment where we're seeing Carberry play 10 and Crowley's also on the pitch at the same time. Then all of a sudden, if one of those gets injured, you don't have any replacements. And when Sexton goes, which may well be at the end of the World Cup, after that, all of a sudden we have a tier of players who are all very, very similar, from Ross Byrne and Harry Byrne and Kieran Frawley and the 3 lads at Munster, and that's it. We don't have
they have Tony Butler coming through as well in the academy, who's a very exciting player in Munster.
So they obviously feel comfortable enough that he's next season Champions Cup semi-final level. Do you know, that's what you're.
There's a real danger here. Yeah, there's a real danger. Sorry, I interrupted Rog there, but there is a real danger. And Roger, you probably know this yourself, Rog. It's like. Look at Manchester United signing Jack Butland and Ten Hag saying we need 3 goalkeepers. You need 3 fly halves in the squad as well.
But the most important thing is, if the player wants to do something, the player wants to do something. So Ben has decided, no one else has decided to sign for Edinburgh or Scotland. Ben Healy has decided to do that. We can discuss and debate the threats and the opportunities and the challenges involved in this decision, but ultimately it's his decision. He has seen a kind of a pathway to play Test rugby by taking this route. Do we know whether it'll work out? Will Munster miss him? Will Ireland miss him? That's all to be decided. It's very hard to speculate when there isn't probably an established pecking order at Munster. Of lately, it's probably Carberry, Crowley, Healy, I would think, but with the rugby I have seen, it's probably no one has, I suppose, dictated where they started 5 games in a row. It's Crowley, maybe Carberry, 1 game Ben Healy. Very, very difficult to establish a rhythm, a pecking order when it's like that. But then that's how you manage your players too. But then all of a sudden the system gets a jolt when one of the I suppose guys with a lot of potential decides to leave. But
when you're trying to sign a player yourself in that position, and I think this is where Gregor Townsend is a significant part of this, to actually get a player, and you probably know this from yourself, when you sit down and talk to someone, you've got to sell them a plan and say, this is where we're going and this is how I view you. So I think Gregor Townsend has had a real major impact. Obviously, he's a fly half as well. If you were trying to sign Bell Healy, his argument to anyone else would be, well, Ronan O'Gara has been there, done that. Gregor Townsend has. Do you rely on that to tell a player a story, that this is where I want you, this is how I see you, this is how I view you. And for me, it would convince me if some other coach says, I want you, I believe in you, this is what I'm going to do with you, as opposed to Graham Rowntree is not in that situation, or Mike Prendergast at the moment, where they can't. Their argument is doesn't have the same weight.
I think it does. I think what's, I suppose, interesting in this case, Quinny, is that you're not talking about a confirmed player. You're talking about a player with a lot of potential. That's a dangerous conversation with younger players, because you begin using the words but and if you progress and hit your potential. We don't know where his limit is. While the same could be said in his growth in Munster and with Ireland. But like, there's obviously a good reason why he hasn't been called into the Irish camp, because it's the best 2 or 3 every time for test selection. He isn't in that category yet. Ireland's depth chart is a lot greater than Scotland, so hence his progress into the top 2 or 3 in Scotland will be accelerated, and he'll probably hit that within the next 2 months. So, but I think for all younger players and for any players, it's very important that they have an appreciation of the bigger picture, because things change, as you say. Post World Cup, the situation in Ireland will be very, very different in terms of the capacity to lead the team at number 10, because there's going to be a huge opening there with Johnny stepping aside.
And look, Gregor Townsend might not be the Scotland coach after the World Cup. If things go well for him, great. But if things go badly, the Scottish press have no loyalty to him whatsoever. He'll be a blow-in that was grandfathered in and an easy scapegoat.
He hasn't played for Scotland yet. No. He might not play for Scotland. Has he come out and confirmed that this is...
Well, that's obviously right.
It's pretty obvious
that you're out of the Ireland setup. I have one last question on this to wrap this part of it up. In 5 years' time, Ronan, when you're the Ireland coach and Ben Healy is kicking 15 points against you,
and I'm your manager, Rog,
in Murrayfield, who will you be swearing against? Will it be him or will it be the Irish? What are you doing, lads? Why did you let this happen?
That's exactly what goes through your head with a lot of these things. It's a very interesting call, because I would have thought, especially with Mike Prendergast in Munster, his I suppose career path would have been very well mapped, and his capacity to progress with a half-back coach essentially would have been accelerated. But he obviously has deep frustrations about something, and he's decided to go this way. If I'm the Ireland coach in 5 years and he's kicking 15 points against me, it means I'll have to score a lot of tries against him.
It's we have to accept this and wish him well, because we accepted the other way, don't we?
Just not in the game against us in the World Cup.
Bundyaki,
him and John Cooney running in 3 tries in 15 minutes at the end, be like, lads.
Irish qualified guys. Anton Frisch is...
that's exactly what you want, sure. That's not a threat. If Cooney and Healy are the starting halfbacks for Scotland in the World Cup, I can be pretty sure that a lot of players in Ireland will be licking their lips at taking on and breaking down that halfback combination. That's the other side of it. It doesn't come into the heads of Josh van der Fleer that Ben Healy is playing. This is an opponent in front of him, whether he's, Ben Healy from Tipperary or Ben Healy from Zimbabwe, and he's playing in a Scottish jersey, or from Glasgow, it's the exact same. He's got to prepare a plan to destroy what's in front of him. And if it's Cooney and Healy as the halfback for Scotland, I think Ireland would very much fancy their chances.
Yeah, it has to be as ruthless as that, really, and we expect it will be. Ronan, before we let you go, the last game before Christmas for La Rochelle was a defeat. How quickly were you able to park that and have the crack at Christmas?
Santa didn't come to Cork.
You won against Perpignan last week, so that was...
That's always easy with hindsight. It was set up for a great Christmas back home for 2 days, but once the 23rd happened, I felt like cancelling Christmas, came home, travelled home on my own, and it was an angry grumpy Father Christmas, but
You still had the darts though, Ronan.
oh, what about that the other night, Shane? Fantastic.
I had to bring it up. Jared's going to kill me for bringing it up.
Ever. The greatest leg ever.
It was unbelievable, wasn't it?
Oh wow, jeez, I loved it. We gotta go. Let's get the off the ball fun bus. Let's get a podcast from the alley.
100%. We have Michael Smith coming on the show now the week after next, so I think we should go to Ali Pally next year as a group.
No, we should bring the show to Michael Smith.
100%.
Michael Smith coming to us.
All right, this is the greatest roadshow idea you've ever had.
Yeah, December, Ali Pally, let's go.
Back to the rugby. You've Toulouse tomorrow. Now, what about that? What's going to happen there?
Hold on there. There's a bit of outside noise coming in on the street, lads. Is there?
Yeah, Toulouse, they're not great, are they? Well, sorry, one last question. Should Ireland be doing more to attract the Brennan boys? I mean, we've heard that they might want to play for France instead, but should we be doing what Scotland have just done to us with the Brennan lads?
Yeah, but like I think, and I see my own thing, school is so powerful. Trevor's in Toulouse for over 20 years. Trevor's kids are French. All his mates are French. He's come up through the French schooling system. He has developed relationships, family bonds, fraternity with these guys that he's playing with week in, week out with Toulouse, underage, and then up to the Marcosi with the French team. Like I meet Trevor regularly and I see him a lot, and you wouldn't get a better Irishman. But in terms of where his kids are at, his kids are French. They want to play for France. Yes, they can try and turn his head, but as you say, it's exactly the thing. It's not what your dad wants to do. It's not what the system wants to do. It's what these are their own people. They make their own decisions, and I think when you're outside of Ireland, you can appreciate that. You know, I mean, they never went to school in France. In Ireland. They've never played in Ireland. Yes, their dad is Irish, but these guys are it's French. Like you mean Josh, when he speaks, you wouldn't know he's Irish.
No. Are you telling us there, breaking the news to us, that your five are all going to play for France? Is that the?
No, mine are different because I'm coming back. You know. But I see it, you know, as I'm talking to you about the, like, in the World Cup at the minute. Obviously, they think their team is France. I'm there. We don't support France. Our team is Ireland. But how do you explain to them Ireland aren't in the World Cup? They just don't understand it, you know.
Yeah, it's tough. You got your job cut out here on many multiple fronts. Just make sure they don't play for France. You'll be grand. You'll be welcome back at any point there, Ronan.
When Hugo is on, when we're on first name terms with Hugo, I was there. Who's Hugo? Hugo Lloris. I was there. Who is Hugo Lloris? And he was there because he's the teammate of Harry Kane, you know. And that day he was never going to get that penalty because Hugo knew what he was going to do, and I was there. Who is Hugo?
Well,
but that's what they talk about in the schoolyard, and it's an example for the Brennans. You know, they've played all. Even though they're still young and they could play for Ireland, I think they want to play for France first.
All right, Ronan, we'll let you go. Good stuff. Enjoy the weekend. Thanks a million.
Cheers, lads. See you. Good to chat.
The other side of that, obviously, is, of course, Andy Farrell's youngest son is living in Ireland, growing up in Ireland, in the Ireland school system at the moment. So we take him. If the swings and roundabouts are that we lose the Brennan kids, but we get Andy Farrell's son, we'd be happy.
Yeah, and that's how it's working with Ben Healy, and I made the point that, you know, it works both ways. It's all about timing and stuff like that. Trevor's two sons are doing really well, and there's another one on making strides as well. So it's
is there a third one?
Yeah, I'm nearly sure there is. But Joshua, he's the second row, back row, who's doing, you know, playing. He's in that Toulouse squad and he's doing very, very well there. So I'm sure Ireland and the RFU will be looking at that situation. It's all about timing, really, isn't it?
It is about timing.
Excuse me.
Making the point as well that it's about marketing. Like the two lads arriving back into Irish rugby will be a massive boost for whatever province gets them. You can build a lot around that.
Excuse me.
We'll get you a drink.
An awful dose of a cough.
You're grand. OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. If you want to get involved in the conversation, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number, or of course you can always leave a comment on the YouTube stream. Will we let you go? Or you?
No, I'm fine. I'm
yeah,
grand.
okay. The URC fixtures this week, it's kind of like at some level we're waiting for the teams who are in the European Cup to get some form together. For Connacht though, every single match really matters now because their form has been so chaotic.
Yeah, it's a difficult one for them. They've shown us glimpses of how good they can be when they hold on to the ball and they attack, but they've got the Sharks at home now, and it's a must win game for them. You know, they've lost 7 in the league, and it's the pressure's kind of mounting there on them that their season is going to kind of peter out. They don't make Europe, they don't make playoffs. They're in the Challenge Cup. Good start there with the win in Newcastle, win in Brive. But they want to get into Europe and they need to go on a run now in the league, and it's imperative that they get a result this weekend against the Sharks, who are a very, very powerful, strong side. It's going to be difficult for them tomorrow, but they've got to get a win. They've got to get some consistency in their game, and they've got to make the sports ground a really difficult place and just start picking up wins there really quickly.
It has to turn around for them, as you say, otherwise it's going to be a lost season. And with a coaching ticket turnover, we don't think it's going to be turned over significantly, but that's just another period where you were waiting for something to happen and it didn't happen, and it's really disappointing.
Yeah, and you have to give Connacht a lot of plaudits for the ambition, the way they play, the restrictions they have around squad numbers and depth and marquee signings and all that kind of stuff. They've got to make do sometimes with what they have, and they've done remarkably well. But it's you think to attract more players, even younger players from within Ireland. We're talking about the Ben Healy thing. You know, would he went there and taken on Jack Carty for that the out half spot there? Would that been a possibility? I'd love to have seen Ben Healy stayed.
Do we think he got offered a contract?
I think he got offered big money
in Connacht and Ulster, because Ulster don't have a good out half at the moment who we think is in competition.
I think the opportunity the IRFU would gladly have
do we think they had that conversation?
I don't know, it's speculation, but I think to keep Ben Healy within the system, there would have been the obvious choices.
It would have been mad not to have that
Ulster
conversation.
or Connacht,
yeah,
and you know, put him into one of those places. But anyway, you know, for Connacht, I think, you know, for them to get into the playoffs, that has to be the target. They've made it really, you know, it's a tough run for them. Andy Friend is leaving at the end of the season. They have a lot of good players. Are they still a little bit underpowered up front? Probably. They have a lot of quality there and really exciting young players and the way they play. But it comes down to results, Ger, and they've got to beat the Sharks and try and get, dare I say, 5 points against them tomorrow.
All right, Quinny, we'll leave it there for now. We'll talk to you again on Monday. Thanks very much for that.